Arsenal winning Champions League, something they've never done, in a season where they're not expected to do it, would be huge.
You said recently winning the Champions League is harder.
No, I didn't.
We're pretty sure you did.
Did I?
Do you think Slot would be where we are now with Arsenal? No chance.
I've been an owner. It's a thankless task. You get to spend your money, abused for doing it, told what you're doing wrong, then told to spend some more. Everyone says, you're wealthy, you can afford it. What's that got to do with it?
See, I remember walking on a paddle tennis court with you in Qatar, Simon, when Gary Neville started on you.
But he made no sense. It was just nonsense.
You've been threatened with legal action many times.
Sure.
Yeah.
But that meant to be frightening.
Look how strong and robust we are.
Yeah, we're the robust
Nothing
gang.
gets
Absolutely.
to us. Not even that guy at the ATM yesterday. I'll have you. Last night, really, the night belonged to Arsenal, the night belonged to Declan Rice. But funnily enough, and Danny mentioned this, so we've gone into the archives and
Only
looked
in
it out.
jest.
And I know it's only in jest, but this was last year when Graham Souness, a great midfielder, of that there is no doubt, with Liverpool and Scotland. Souness was talking to Simon and myself about Declan Rice and kind of gave us his view of what he was.
I'm not sure if that's something you can develop. I think that's something you've got or you've not got. I mean, there's no doubt it'll be an asset to whoever takes him. I mean, he's and I bet he's a great boy to work with. And this is not a criticism. You know, we're talking about someone who's been worth 100 million quid. But for me, the top midfield players have what he has and have the cuteness of play further up the field and they score goals and they create chances.
Yeah.
His record is 204 games, 10 goals, 10 assists. That you're not talking about a midfield player. When you speak to a midfield player today, what position you're at? I'm an attacking midfield player. How many goals do you get? Oh no, I'm not. That's not the priority for me.
What do you think of what Graham was saying there, Danny?
No, I understand completely his point. The question mark originally with Declan as a holding midfielder, where he played for West Ham in England for years, is can he do more that way? The last 2 seasons under Arteta, he has played further forward, and his numbers should be higher because of the ability he's got. So I think he's always had it. I think he just needs a bit of time to master it and be better at it. But he's just never been given a role in a team where he's been able to express it. Like up until recently under Arteta in this new mold with Partey behind him, releasing him. I think we'll see more from him. I think so. I mean, look, it's a difficult one. For England, he's the best holding midfielder we've got. And when you play holding midfield, you have to be reasonably disciplined with the ball. You don't want to be risking it too much. You want to be getting it to the players who can win you the games.
Yeah.
So it's a conundrum for Tuchel.
I mean, he was He was the game changer last night, Danny.
Yes.
Can he do that on a regular basis?
I think he can, but time will tell. Scoring goals is free kicks help, but getting in the box more often, like he did for the header when Courtois saved it, that's where you want to see him more. He should score more because he's capable.
Yeah.
You know, brilliant technician, strikes a ball lovely, his left foot's decent, he's big, he's tall, he can head it. You know, so Suey at that point, his observation was fair.
Yeah. I remember when he said it to you and I up there. But you haven't been Declan's biggest fan, Simon.
He also wrote an article, Graham, saying the same things. I don't think there's anything fundamentally wrong with the information that was available to him at the time, which was basing upon what he'd seen. And my observations were based upon what I saw in the World Cup, which was sideways and back, sideways and back, sideways and back.
Safe.
Which was safe, which is perhaps what he was asked to do, which was the environment he was playing in, which is the Southgate mentality.
Correct.
So there's an element of how good the player can be is often how good he's allowed to be in the framework that he's put into. In the Arsenal framework, he's asked to do something different than perhaps he is asked to do for England and was asked to do for West Ham. Now, Souness went on to say that he doesn't feel that he's got the cute ball inside in his locker in terms of the ball that opens people up, the insightful ball.
That's probably fair.
Well, we haven't seen that from him. What we've seen is 2 world-class strikes. It's like saying you judge a boxer by 2 world-class punches. Let's see how he goes on from here. Clearly, he's a good player. Clearly.
He's a phenomenal player. But the difference is what Suey's talking about in terms of that cuteness of passing. You know, that Alonso, De Bruyne, Scholes type thing. I'm not sure that's going to come. That's in you. Yeah. But goals can come. You know, constantly getting in good positions and being in the right place at the right time can come
Which is more advantageous for England from him, Danny, do you think? Is it for him to be a holding midfield player that does a job, or is it for him to be unleashed and let put forward as an attacking force? Because it feels to me like Tuchel's brave.
I think the problem you've got is if you release him.
What do you leave behind him?
Yeah. And I don't think we've got another one who can do what he does. Wilson can do it. Wharton, yeah, but he doesn't have the athleticism of Declan.
Right.
Do you know one thing about last night, though?
The big game.
Here's the thing. The victory last night, this morning, should be cheered all around Newcastle, Chelsea, Villa, Fulham and Manchester.
Absolutely.
Because Arsenal's win over Real Madrid means the Premier League is now guaranteed 5 Champions League places next season.
Absolutely.
5th gets you Champions League. So what have they done? Everybody should be patting them in the back. But I want to put this out here this morning, Danny, and to you, Simon. Arteta lifting the Champions League this season, would that top the lot? Would that surpass the Slot debut title-winning storyline?
Well, it would for Arsenal fans, wouldn't
Think
it?
about it.
Arsenal have never won it.
Right.
So in Arsenal's history, that would be monumental. It would become... Liverpool have won the league before. You know, Liverpool have won the Champions League, they won the league. So winning another league, although it's a new season, and a wonderful achievement, Arsenal winning the Champions League, something they've never done, in a season where they're not expected to do it, would be huge.
You said recently winning the Champions League is harder.
No, I didn't.
We're pretty sure you did.
Did I?
Winning... Yeah, a few months back.
I don't think I did.
Winning the Champions League. Wait, where'd you stand in it, Simon?
Well,
Arteta
in fact,
and
I'll
Arsenal
go
winning
as far
it.
as say there's no way I'd say that.
We'll have a look for that, just like we looked for the
Okay.
Sooners bit.
I think in isolation it will be a remarkable achievement, but I think that winning a Premier League over 38 games against a cup competition of 17, in which a lot of the rubbers are often not as competitive as you'd like them to be, is not the same. I think that winning the Premier League is the more advantageous and the more admirable. And I think football managers always talk about their bread and butter. They always talk about winning the domestic leagues.
Yeah.
But to win the Champions League and to have overcome Real Madrid on the way through, and whoever else they may have to get past in the next round if they are able to seal the deal when they play Madrid in the return leg, well, I think will be a phenomenal achievement, because we're talking about Arsenal, in retrospect on Monday, about the fact they didn't buy strikers, the failings of the situation. If they come away with a Champions League, it will be akin to what Chelsea did, which is not win the league, but with Tuchel win the Champions League.
Right.
I still think that winning the Premier League is the more commendable of the achievements.
I think again, I hear you.
But it's a brilliant, if they can do it, and we're writing scripts for the future, if they can do it, it's brilliant.
It's where you're at on the journey, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Right.
It's like Leicester winning the Premier League was just, I mean, that will be unlikely to ever be surpassed.
It will destroy any arguments about Arteta and where he's going.
Yeah.
Because it'll eclipse what Wenger had done if they win the Champions League, because they didn't.
Right.
So there is a unique piece of opportunity here for Arteta, and if they get past Madrid, then who's to say they won't win it?
Sam, massive Arsenal fan. You were there last night, Sam. I know it was 3-0, but what did you witness? Describe it.
I'm still a bit speechless now, if I'm honest with you. I can't quite believe it.
Yeah.
One thing I will say, like, obviously, is sitting there watching it with my mate Mark, who's been going since '76. He was baffled himself, but I think the Thomas Partey performance, I think, has gone a little bit under the radar.
Yeah.
I've been a big critic of Partey for a while, but my God, he was incredible, absolutely incredible. And Lewis Skelly, I mean, I've not seen a more exciting left back since Ashley Cole at the club, definitely, and probably, I think the sky's the limit for him. I mean, what a professional performance from him. He just looks like he's been there 10 years. And
yeah.
I mean, what I was going to ask Danny and Simon and yourself, my concern is going to the Burnabout, whether he might end up paying Jorginho and then sitting a little bit deeper, which then plays into Real Madrid's hands. I'm not sure, but if we can hit them on the break, obviously, you know, we have got Saka, Martinelli, etc. But I just want them to have the same confidence going forward. And again, Mourinho, I know he's not that striker, but again, doing that job that he's done, I just don't want them to scupper what they've done in the first leg. And I'll always have my reservations that maybe if Real Madrid get that early goal, it's always that thing with Arsenal, especially the last few seasons. I know the whole bottle in, but it's one of them. I really think if we can just get through the first 20 minutes in the Burnabout, then I think Real Madrid will then panic. And
okay, Sam, many good points there. Listen, Sam, you've raised a lot of good points. Danny, what do they have in Partey when he plays like that last night?
Well, Partey's got a lovely balance of physicality and defensive nous, and technical ability on the ball to take it under pressure. When he's at his best, he's a really, really good player. The strange one with him is that why they've let his contract get to this point. That's probably why they're looking at Zubamendi or looking at a replacement. I think he's up this summer, or he's got one left. I can't remember. Because I think he's terrific. He does have the odd game where he looks a little bit tired, or if he plays a lot of games in consecutive days, if you like.
Yeah.
But he's a terrific player. I mean, he's the one that gives Declan. He's the reason why Arteta's allowed Declan to go forward more, because he trusts him. If Partey's not fit, Declan tends to sit in there and have to do that job. Jorginho's used infrequently because of
Incidentally, you're right. His contract's up in the summer.
That's right. I'm amazed at that.
Well, what would you do, Simon? Does that, as a former owner, does that surprise you that he seems to be key to what they do and a big occasion player, and yet the summer is fast approaching?
Well, I don't know if he is a big occasion player, but I mean, certainly in this particular game, he was a colossus for them. He gave them things that they perhaps very much needed in this game. There must be a commercial reason behind Partey and why they haven't given him a new contract. I can't speak to that and why they would want to do that. Well, it's
probably to do with the demands maybe from him and his age, and them thinking we don't want to pay that.
We always know that.
Yeah. The fact of the matter is, they're 3 ahead. And they go to the Bernabeu next. Vincent, big Arsenal fan, what's on your mind then? If you switch towards the second leg, what are you thinking?
Well, I believe that watching the game yesterday and the pedigree of Madrid, who has been considered as masters of comebacks, I expect Arsenal to put up a spirited performance as they did yesterday. And to maintain that, it will be quite difficult. But who knows? Whatever happens at the Bernabeu next week, Wednesday, I think Arsenal will scale through.
You still think they'll go through?
Do you know what? The really difficult one is that you've got a situation where you want to be really compact and fill the spaces and stop them early on, especially the crowd and the momentum of the players. And that looks negative. And it can still go badly. So someone can hit one in the top corner from 30 yards and then you get criticised for being too defensive and not going after them. The reality is, the game will open up if you get through that first 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want Arsenal to go and press them high in the first 20 and leave big gaps.
But there's no need to, is there?
No, but Arteta's quite stubborn in that respect, because that's how they dominated Madrid, by being brave last night. And the mindset might be, well, we'll do the same again because we'll score.
Yeah.
Whereas the reality is, away from home in Europe sometimes, there's nothing wrong with going. I remember going to Barca once, they were better than us, and we got a 0-0 and we had one shot on target. I don't remember being in their half. But we beat them at home. I know it's the other way round, but they're 3-0 up. And if you do, footballers will always tell you, when you hear them in commentary, people say, it's a training exercise, defence attack, or a man gets sent off. If you put 11 in your own half and say to Madrid, come on then, they won't score 3 goals. Never.
Never?
No, Arsenal good defensively. You're not playing a second division team. You're playing top international. If you've got Declan Rice,
even
Partey,
Mbappe,
and then
Vinicius Junior,
and then they'll
Jude.
start getting desperate, and the big spaces will open up for Saka and Martinelli.
Yeah.
You can't go after them early when you're 3-0 up. Be crazy.
Tommy, good morning. Big Arsenal fan. What do you want to say to Danny and Simon?
Hello?
Hello.
Hi, Tommy. Good morning.
Hello, mate.
Where are you at with all of this?
We're going to win it. We're going to win it after that.
Hell of a chance.
Yeah.
And honestly, if we play like that against any team, I can't see us losing. The only thing is, I would rather play PSG than playing Villa.
Really?
Yeah.
Ah, wow, that surprises me. Funnily enough, our producer's an Arsenal fan, and he said the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, it's just Emery just got something on us that hasn't. But also, it's if we don't win it, I still want Arteta to come through next season and try again, because everyone banters us and says, next season. But isn't it next season for every team? It's next season for Tottenham. It's next season for Chelsea. It's next season for Man City. Why would we're onto a good thing, whether it's been 5 years or 10 years, no one's entitled to win that Premier League. Mr. Simon Jordan says it. Football fans ain't entitled to go watch a game if they can't afford to. So why all of a sudden does Arsenal have to win it every year?
Mr. Simon Jordan sitting beside me. What did you say, Mr. Simon Jordan?
I'm not sure I said that. What I said was the football fans are not entitled to do certain things.
Yeah, you say entitlement. No one's entitled. We're not.
And that's a fair observation. You have to earn it.
So what you're saying is, get this right, and I agree with you. I think if I'm right in interpreting what you say, Get off Arteta's back. He's moving the club forward. The fact he hasn't won something yet, okay, but you're competitive. You're not. You're second in the league. You're competing. Yeah.
So Tommy Singh.
We had Arsene Wenger for 13 years after 2004, winning nothing. All we picked up was FA Cups and top fours, and they riddled him for it, but we kept him there. So why now do we have to get rid of Arteta because we haven't won the trophy? We've only picked up.
Tommy, you believe in the project. That's what you do.
36 years. Like, I'm lucky enough to see it, but yeah, I believe in it. Whether it takes another year or another 2 years, we haven't lost to a Big Six team in 2 years. We didn't even have our main centre back and our main striker yesterday. We pumped them. If Arteta had Liverpool squad and Slot had Arsenal squad, do you think Slot would be where we are now with Arsenal? No chance. You've got to give the man credit for where we had fans fighting each other, Jim. They were fighting each other in the ground how bad Arsenal was at one point. Now look at it. We've got them screaming North London.
Tommy, love it. Love it all. Thank you so much. Going to finish with Simon. Another Simon. A big Arsenal fan. What's your take on last night, Simon? Finish this off for us.
Do you know what? I've been getting absolute pelters on social media from Spurs fans because I was posting about them singing, "Are you watching Tottenham?" I thought that was awesome. I've got Spurs fans going on at me saying, "That's pathetic. Why do you always have to sing about us?" These are the same pathetic fans who were doing the Poznan when they were 2-0 down at home last season. And they have the absolute you-know-whats to call us pathetic.
I love it. Simon, where are you at with it? Is it job done yet?
No, never. I mean, again, Jude Bellingham spoke a lot of sense last night, mate, just saying that, anything can happen, especially at the Bernabeu. I think we've just got to do another... we went to Man City and we got that point earlier this season by literally sticking 15 players behind the ball on the goal line. We've just got to do that. I think it's going to be, and again, we'll get absolute pelters for that, but you got to do what you got to do.
It doesn't. To be honest, he's got to go into that and do whatever it takes. It doesn't really matter.
Simon, thank you. Thanks to all the callers. Danny, I'll put you in the spot as we head to the break. In a few sentences, if you were Arteta, what's your approach?
Start really compact and pragmatically, and just wait for the 20 minutes for the game to open up. Then you give them the autonomy to play and do their normal thing. But early on, you protect.
I don't want to tempt fate by asking you both. Is it done?
I think it's done. I would, Jim. I'll tell you really quickly. I heard it last night, and it's not me looking it up. I heard it. 4 games in Champions League history where 3-0's been reversed after the first leg,
right?
And none of them have been by Madrid.
Yeah, Mr. Simon Jordan, as you were referred to. Is it done?
Should be. Yeah, it's in Arsenal's hands.
They're too good defensively.
Should be as fair.
They're too good defensively for it not to be done.
Yeah. Why does this not surprise me? During the break, we were talking about golf and our exploits and frustrations surrounding playing golf. You've chucked a whole set of Callaways into a river, have you?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can be quite temperamental.
What, how you just walk in after that?
No, I just left them there. I was so disgusted with it all.
I love it. Danny, the world of punditry. This interests me greatly. Manchester United legend Paul Scholes has revealed that one of United's current players was left unhappy with something he said in punditry and asked to meet with Scholes at the training ground to have it out. Scholes says players can be a little bit touchy these days. I had a player this year who contacted me, wasn't happy with some of the things I'd said. He wanted to meet me at the training ground. I said, yeah, of course, no problem. I gave him my number, but he never came back to me. Scholes says, I would have done it. So the other fella obviously thought twice about it. You ever been in this situation? Do you have current day players coming to you as a former great player, but saying to you, I didn't like what you said?
I've had the only one similar. I had in my early years. I had a lad at Fulham. I'd criticised him. They'd lost 4 or 5 at home to Man U, and I saw him swapping shirts at the end on the pitch, smiling and shaking someone's hand. So I went to town on him a little bit. And then one of the other Fulham boys who I know called me and said this particular player wanted to speak to me about it. So I said, fine, give him my number. And he didn't call. So that was like probably the Scholes situation here. Yeah, that was probably the hardest I went on someone, because I was a bit infuriated by it, to be honest. So I probably could have chosen my words a bit better. But he didn't.
How honest are you when you have to go in on your own?
I think on players' performances, I'm wary of delivery, but I'm always honest. I wouldn't say someone was bad or when they weren't, or vice versa, or indulge it because I had a previous grievance or something. Delivery is key when you're criticising players. And I remember having a conversation with a very senior player, England player, who's still playing now. And he actually come up to me, I was having a beer, and we were in a bar somewhere. And he actually come up to me and thanked me for some of the things I'd said, because I'd gone against the grain a bit and said some good things about him when everyone else was on him. I've had that a couple of times.
Yeah.
In fact, I've had that 2 or 3 times from three really big players who are still playing.
See, Scholes makes sense to me when he says the only people that should affect the players of today is what the manager thinks, the coaching staff, their teammates.
Correct.
Whatever is said in TV or radio should be taken with a pinch of salt. Do you care what you say, Simon, about certain individuals in the game?
No. And
Simon personalises it though sometimes.
I do not.
You do.
I do not. I call people, I might use robust language, but I don't delve into their character. If their behaviour is moronic, I'll call them a moron for their moronic behaviour, and I'll cite the reasons behind it, as I did with Jack Grealish previously, and said this is a behaviour of a moron. He keeps on doing the same things. But I look at it and think, no, I think you've got to be fair. If you are not fair and you're biased and you have an agenda, which I don't, there are people that I dislike, and they tend to be people like maybe Steve Parish, and I have good reason for that, and I'll say it, but I'll also praise them for the things they've done well.
At Crystal Palace.
Yeah, Chris Wilder. You know, I didn't like his behaviour at Sheffield United 2 or 3 years ago. I was very strong on my opinions of it, but I'm also capable of going, well, actually, he's a bloody good manager for Sheffield United, and I think he'll get promoted underneath them. I think you've got to be fair, and if
are you honest and fair when it comes to owners and criticism of owners?
I think I am, but I'm also in a situation where I've been an owner. It's a thankless task. You get to spend your money, abused for doing it, told what you're doing wrong, then told to spend some more. And if you win something, it's everybody else that's won it. And if you lose something, it's all your fault. And unless you've been in that situation, it's a very difficult place to be. And everyone says, you're wealthy, you can afford it. What's that got to do with it? We're all human beings when it comes down to the end of the day. I think you've got to be fair. I think character building is to be honest about people. And I think too many people in modern day society, they'll forget all the praise and they'll listen to the one bit of criticism. Now, if the criticism isn't justified, well, the thing that really gets up people's noses is when you hit it on the head and you call them out and they don't like it. You do it in the boxing world. Hearn doesn't like it. Warren doesn't like it. They don't like it stuck on their toes. So what they're used to doing is bullying people into their way of thinking. And when someone like me goes, actually, don't need you, not interested if you turn up in our studio, I don't need anything from you. Here's what I think and I can stack it up. Then they personalise it. And they say, oh, you lost your money or you failed at a football club. They don't deal with the argument. But in this instance, Paul Scholes, if you've got someone of significance like Scholes, that most of the time speaks sense.
It's worth listening to.
It's worth listening to. And it's not necessarily something that you shouldn't disregard just because the only people you should listen to is your manager and your coaches. If somebody says something that's worth listening to and is actually true, then maybe you should take good advice.
As a general rule, as a player, I would never respond to somebody being critical.
When you played?
No.
You've never done it?
I only once remember having a little to do privately with a journalist who it felt like he was getting a bit personal, and he explained his reasoning and that was fine. But there are exceptions, and I think the only exception should come, a player should pick up the phone and have it out with you, or when he sees you say his piece.
Why not?
If you've gone a bit personal,
stepped over the line,
and you've gone too far, and I listened to what Scholes and Carragher on the show were talking about, and Carragher made a good point. To be fair, he's saying sometimes in the moment in our job, especially when you're doing co-coms,
you go to extremes.
You do find yourself falling into a little trap or getting a bit over the top with your passion and being overly critical because you're frustrated at watching someone, and you wish you could have drawn it back.
See, I remember walking on a paddle tennis court with you in Qatar, Simon, and Gary Neville started on you.
Yeah.
But
he made no
to
sense.
you, that's water off a duck's back.
But he made no sense. It was just nonsense. But I remember Ferdinand. We had Ferdinand come back to me to boxing and go, why do you have a go at me? Why do you have a go at me constantly? I said, because I expect better from you. You have the ability to give us more insight, and you sit there with a load of old nonsense trotting out your ambassadorial tripe because you're in the pocket of Man United. If you're going to be on television, say something meaningful. And there on afterwards, the next time he was on television, wasn't to do with me. He did a Champions League commentary, and it was brilliant with Joe Cole. And I remember sending him a text saying, that's brilliant. That's what people would pay to listen to.
Yeah. Do you find getting criticised by owners is more difficult to take from your peers owner to owner. Do you find that tough?
No, because I think an owner's opinion on you is irrelevant. I think what I think is unfair is characterizations in the media, because narrative gets created and you have to row back from it. You're defending yourself against false arguments, false equivalencies, and I dislike that. That's why I sometimes get on my high horse about what the media does and what the media doesn't do, because it creates narratives, and then you're forever being judged by a set of standards that aren't fair. So, and I think it applies to everybody, and the balance has to be gotten. But I think we live in a society, and I think you probably agree, where people are too fragile and not resilient enough. And there's something admirable about people that can say, well, that criticism was fair, and I'm going to approach it in that fashion, rather than being a child about it and say any criticism is off bounds.
And let's be honest, I think at Premier League level, top clubs and top players generally have built up a wall of resilience over years to get to the top. So most of them are pretty robust. There's one or two who probably you think, oh, come on, like don't be so fragile.
Look at the nonsense from PR departments about what you can ask and what you can't.
It drives me mad.
Job justifiers, creating existence. These are robust leaders. These are meant to be leaders, captains of industry, people that are lionised. Let them answer a bloody honest question.
Yeah. And ask what you want.
I never did that.
Ask what you want within reason. Ask what you want. But is it fair to say, Danny, before we leave this, that players today, because of rolling news, because of social media, players today are scrutinised more than ever before, and they've got to live with that more than you were when you played at Liverpool.
Yeah, they are scrutinised more, but they're rewarded more. So it's.
There it is.
Chicken and egg.
It's a Faustian pact. Get on with it.
I tell you what's great. I tell you what, and I'll just allude back to it quickly. And he was a great example last night, Declan Rice, about being somebody who's massively in the public eye, playing at a big club, international. Everything he does is monitored and put in the media.
Yeah.
That you can still have character and still be warm and still be relatable. Yeah. I think he's a shining example of how a player should be. He's not shut off. He's not. He's not mundane with his answers. He's not PC. He just speaks and he's just himself. People warm to him. There's not many players actually who other fans of other big clubs like.
I agree. But Declan apart, are players more fragile today? Are they more protected than ever?
I think there's probably more fragility now than before, but I wouldn't say it's an epidemic.
Yeah. You ever had a call from anybody that scared the bejesus out of you, Simon? You think, oh God, I don't think he'd come back like this.
No, he wouldn't tell us. He wouldn't tell us.
I know. I mean, I had many ups and downs of Alan Sugar. I can assure you, and Sugar will put you in your place.
I think he meant more someone who's called you and scared you a bit.
Physically?
Well, just a boxer maybe.
Physically?
A boxer who's said, listen, rein it in or I'll give you a slap.
Just a verbal...
that will come, I'm sure.
A verbal lashing. Yeah, a verbal lashing. I mean, you've been threatened with legal action many times.
Sure.
Yeah.
Was that meant to be frightening?
There you go. Water off. We're coming out. Look how strong and robust we are.
Yeah, we're the robust
Nothing
gang.
gets
Absolutely.
to us. Not even that guy at the ATM yesterday. I'll have you. Pep Guardiola has been speaking about Matheus Nunes. And of course, now that Kyle Walker has left Manchester City, Matheus Nunes has been fitting in at right back. And Pep says he'll develop into a right back for Manchester City after claiming he is, quotes, not clever enough to play in midfield. Nunez signed for City from Wolves way back, 2023, I think it was, £53 million deal. And he's made 62 appearances for City so far. Pep says this: Nunez can become a good right back for his physicality. I think he's not a player to play in midfield because he's not clever enough in composure. But he has incredible skills and he's learning a lot. What's he meaning there, Danny? He's not clever enough. That's your neck of the woods.
I think if you play in Pep's team, he wants you to have a certain football IQ when you play in the middle of the pitch. I think he could play midfield as he did for Wolves and other teams who don't necessarily play the same way City play, because they have a high level of football IQ when you play that. You know, you need to do a lot of things well to play in City's midfield. You need to see a lot of pictures and have a real understanding of the game, which he's probably right he's not got. I don't think he's a right back, to be honest with you. Not a great crosser, not a brilliant passer.
I think he's been looking a bit lost, but what do I know?
Yeah, I think it's probably a level too far for him.
Yeah.
I think he probably needs to drop down and be a big fish in a smaller pond.
Would you have been clever enough to play in Pep's City midfield?
Well, I think my strengths were more about my cuteness and cleverness than my physicality, yes. But, I mean, you're talking about some of the best midfielders in the world that he's been, so I wouldn't have got in ahead of them. But the reality is, he is after a certain type to play in the middle of the pitch. And he's not of the level of the players. When you think of... I always think of City's best midfield being... Originally, it was Fernandinho, David Silva and De Bruyne ahead of him. Just incredible.
Incredible. I've forgotten about Fernandinho.
And then Rodri came in, Bernardo Silva came in for David Silva. You know, these are top draw players, and Pep's got this very high bar that you have to hit to be able to play in his midfield. So I think he's right, basically.
Is Morgan Gibbs-White of Nottingham Forest clever enough to play in Pep's midfield?
Yeah.
Because Gibbs-White, Simon, and Bayer Leverkusen's Florian Wirtz are amongst the option it's being reported that Manchester City are considering to replace Kevin De Bruyne this summer. And Gibbs-White has had a season and a half, as have Forrest. Yeah. So one wonders if we're going to see him.
So do you think that translates, Danny? I mean, ultimately, Forrest play a certain way, play a different brand of football than City do. Have you seen enough from him in the various formats that he plays in to suggest that he would slot into Man City's midfield?
Yeah.
Why?
He's just got it all. He's shining in that team, and it suits him being the main man in that respect. So, you know, you've got the only question you'd have is playing under bigger pressure and having to do it more consistently.
Would he get lost in it?
Yeah, I don't think he would, but terrific with his back to goal, great skill, can score, good passer. He takes risks with his passes and through balls. Great advantage with someone like Gibbs-White is he wants to do the work without the ball. And you don't always get number 10s or attacking players who want to do the work. And he can play centre mid, actually. I've seen him play it in a two. He is phenomenal. He's just really unlucky at the moment that England have got so many good players in a similar position. But I think he could play in any team.
I mean, this time he's only 25.
Yeah, he's terrific.
Yeah.
He is.
And
really...
there's Nottingham Forest's reward.
Well, the question is as well, would he go? Why?
Manchester City?
Yeah, would he go?
What do you think?
Probably, but there is also, you've got to ask the question. I mean, I don't know how well paid he could be at Forest, but maybe a year on the Champions League journey if they get in it, rather than going to City and being a bit part. Could we've seen Calvin Phillips' demise.
Yeah. But footballers back themselves, don't they?
They do.
Yeah,
they do.
And Danny, with respect, Nottingham Forest, Pep's City. As long as Guardiola is at City, Morgan Gibbs-White, one would think, and Morgan, if you're listening, I'm not thinking for you. Yeah, they all want to play for Guardiola.
I think they all want to play Champions League. Yeah, and they all want to win trophies.
Is it a feather in your cap to be rated highly by someone like Pep? I mean, I always thought that anyone who got the call up. I spoke the other day. Louis Zaha was in the BetMGM, the lineup show, and he said the moment for him came when it was Sir Alex on the other end of the phone.
Yeah,
that's it. No decision to be made. Yeah. Sir Alex and Pep, they're one and the same. You get rated by one of those two, you're going.
Well, yes, I think that's fair. If you sit in a room with Pep, you're struggling not to say yes, aren't you?
Well, imagine how Nunes feels then, because he's on the other side of that argument now, isn't he?
Yeah.
Well, that's right.
He's not getting rated, he's getting slated. I mean, I know there's a context, and I'm sure it's nuanced, but if you read that particular quote, the players sitting there listening being told that.
He's probably told him already.
Yeah, you're right, Simon.
I'm sure the Man City ownership are delighted that they spent £55 million on a player that Pep Guardiola identified and now doesn't think is good enough to do the job.
Yeah, but I mean, Calvin Phillips springs to mind.
Indeed.
Well, what it tells you is Pep ain't necessarily ticking the box of all the signings he gets.
Sure.
Yeah. Actually, as we speak, Danny's a big Forest fan who joins us. Your namesake, Danny Murphy. Danny, good afternoon to you. As a Forest fan, what have you got in Morgan Gibbs-White?
Where do you start with Morgan Gibbs-White? He is the main man at Forest. I would hate to see him go. I think if first and foremost, is it paper talk? Is it just another name that's been picked out of the hat because he's doing well? That's the first thing. The second thing is, would he want to go from? I think Danny said there that he's a big fish in a small pond, and that's not a sort of a negative towards Forest. I think Forest are up and coming. They've found their place at the moment, and they're playing well with Morgan Gibbs-White being centre to that. So I just hope that if it does come down to a decision by Morgan Gibbs-White, he makes the right decision from a Forest point of view to stay.
Yeah.
There's a lot of players, you've just mentioned a few there, that have gone to bigger clubs, so to speak, and they haven't been part of the furniture because they maybe have a couple of bad games. I think of their right back at the moment. If you look at Phillips that went there from Leeds, it's a big decision, isn't it? You know, not everybody makes it at Man City and fits into the way Pep wants to play his football.
Yeah.
I think the only difference here with him, I know we've compared Calvin Phillips as an example, but Gibbs-White is he's so good and he's so valuable to Forest. To get him out, you're going to have to pay a fortune, first and foremost. And is a club going to pay that much for a player to then not play him? I think if Gibbs-White's sitting down with Guardiola or Arne Slot, whoever it may be, there's going to be a plan and a conversation around where he plays in the team, not where he fits into a squad.
Yeah. Danny, thank you for the call. Nottingham Forest, what a season they have had. We shall see. Morgan Gibbs-White, and as I said, Bayer Leverkusen's Florian Wirtz being spoken about as a potential replacement for Kevin De Bruyne. Showboating. Are you for it? We see it in boxing, of course. Of course we do. A variety of different fighters do a bit of showboating, and why not? We almost accept it. Showboating in football, I can't imagine you ever did it. You were working too hard on the pitch. But those who exhibited a bit of showboating in front of you was a tendency to think, I'll have you.
I think it ultimately depends on your interpretation of showboating. So, standing on the ball like Depay, which we'll talk about, that's ridiculous.
Right.
But showboating, skills, tricks, flicks, it's part of the game. Embrace it, enjoy it. If you do it at the wrong time, you'll get punished by the players on the pitch. You don't need the officials to punish you for doing it, but standing on the ball is ridiculous. I think that's taking it too far, yeah.
You think it's taking it too far?
Well, if he was in my team, he'd only do it once.
You'd have a word with them big time.
Yeah, because you're damaging, you're creating, you're triggering the opposition to do things to you, and you're going to infuriate them to a point that it might be negative to you because they'll play better.
Well, you've second guessed it, Danny, and you're absolutely spot on. That's where we're parking this conversation, because Corinthians forward Memphis Depay, once of Manchester United, of course, has now questioned the Brazil Football Federation's decision to instruct all referees to punish players who stand on top of the ball. Depay stood on the ball as he held a play up by the corner flag during the second leg of the Paulista A1 final on March the 28th. The showboating led to a mass brawl involving the majority of the players from both sides. And of course, in Brazil, they don't need any encouragement to get involved in an off-the-ball incident. Tim Vickery, South American football expert, joins us live. Tim, hi to you. What was your reaction when you saw what Memphis Depay did? And could you believe that he did it in your neck of the woods?
I could, because this was a big final between two rivals. This is a rivalry, Corinthians and Palmeiras, of more than 100 years. It's the biggest derby in the biggest city in South America. And at a decisive stage in the match, Corinthians protecting a 1-0 aggregate lead and we're in stoppage time. This game, it went on for 112 minutes with all of the added 112 minutes. And as soon as Memphis stood on the ball, you know, that's 10 minutes gone. You know, because they're not going to accept it. I see that the Brazilian FA are getting some stick for this rule change, including from Memphis.
Yeah, including him. He's outspoken about it.
And if we want to start criticising the Brazilian FA, you know, how long have you got? But on this one, it's the players. The players make their own codes in sport, and Danny will know this far better than we do. And Brazil's players have decided that this is unacceptable. Someone doing this, it's going to start an almighty ruck. So as soon as he did it, as soon as he stood on the ball, he's taking the mick of an opposition who are losing. They've got no supporters there's no away supporters in these big São Paulo derbies, so they're feeling very, very isolated. The players out there,
right?
They're losing a big final, and someone is taking the mick out of them. You know, it's all going to kick off. Provocation and taking the mick is taken very, very seriously here, really seriously. The game is played very often on an emotional knife edge, and it doesn't take much to set it all off. We have had players booked over here for dribbling. If the ref thinks that you're doing it to take the mick, he's worried about what that's going to do to the atmosphere of the game.
Yeah.
So what Brazil's FA are doing here really is ratifying something that Brazil's players have already decided. This is out of order. This is taking the mick. This is going to lead to a ruck.
I mean, I've read some of the comments from Memphis Depay himself, because the Brazilian Federation is saying next time whoever does it is going to be punished. Memphis Depay says, so I went to Brazil to experience the Jogo Bonita, the beautiful game, at first hand. Brazilian football is elevating and it deserves global visibility. And he says, it's fun as well, etc., etc. But you think, like the Federation thinks, now Memphis, be quiet on this one, you overstepped the mark.
Yeah, what Memphis knows what he's doing here. He's playing into that kind of global image, because you lot don't see a lot of domestic club football. So we all live, Jim, we all live in a permanent kind of Mexico 70, you know, and people have this image of Brazilian football as being a kind of carnival in boots where no one's worried about defending and everyone goes out there to express themselves and so on. That couldn't be further from the truth. It's all about winning. I remember watching a game a few years ago, next to a coach who was big in the 90s, and his sides were very rugged and it was all kicking off, and he was just nodding his head in approval, saying, you know what, son, football is survival. And that's what it is in Brazil. Yeah. And it's also a culture where humiliation has a real power, because people feel humiliated in their daily lives. Yeah. They don't want that to have that experience in the football stadium. So go on, Jim.
You mentioned Danny. Danny's sitting in the studio with me here. Sometimes people criticise the Premier League, Danny, for being too boring, too structured. We don't want to stamp out the Mavericks, and Memphis Depay is one of those.
I actually thought he had a good Euro. I like him. He's a good player. A very good technical player, and I like to see flair and skill and dribbling and the normal. I think all of us who love football, irrelevant whether you played or not, know when someone's baiting and taking the mick and just going too far, and someone's just expressing themselves. Yeah. It's not a difficult line to follow. And Tim's right. The players generally all over the world will quite quickly put someone in the place if they start doing stupid things. I mean, who was it years ago, Tim? Was it a Mexican guy used to in one of the World Cups who used to put the ball between traps, like Blanco, and jump over people with it? Now that's not taking the mick. That's a great bit of inventive skill that should be embraced.
It's taking the mick as well, though, isn't it?
No, because he's using it to beat you. I think it probably got stamped out, didn't it? Because it is obstruction from getting the ball, maybe. But my point is, there's got to be a line, Tim, hasn't there, where you want to see people express themselves.
See, I don't think there's much difference between what Danny has just mentioned and what Memphis Depay did, Tim. Or is there?
No, because what Blanco did, there's another move here, you see it sometimes, it's called the Lambretta, when you flick it up behind yourself and then over the head of the opponent and run around the other side. That's fabulous. That's a way of beating the opposition. That's a way of taking the opposition defender out of the game and going towards the goal. But if you're standing on the ball, that serves no objective purpose in terms of winning the game. All it does is take the mick out of the opposition. Yeah.
Tim, did he stand on the ball and do the old hand above the head, looking at?
Oh, looking at what's Andrej Kanchelskis did it in a Rangers shirt. Ridiculous. I always remember. Where do you stand in showboating, Simon? Are you having it?
Well, I like charisma, I like style, I like expression. I think there was a balance.
You like it in boxing with Ben Whittaker?
I do. I like it in football as well. I mean, JJ Okocha was a major practitioner of the particular trick that Tim was alluding to, and did it in the Premier League. Skill of beating a player.
Did it to me?
One, did he do it to you? There's another thing about, I'm not sure Memphis Depay should be the poster boy for anything. I don't think he set himself up well at Manchester United, and I don't think the Dutch think that highly of him. I remember being over there in the Euros and listening to the journalist talking about the disappointment of Memphis Depay, because he seems to be a rebel without a cause. Always seems to be on the end of an argument, and going over to Brazil and lecturing the Brazilians about what he thinks they should culturally accept, I think is a bit wide of the mark. Yeah, and I think they're right.
Has he become a bit of a villain now then, when the next time he steps on the pitch, Tim, for the opposing fans? Is that going to translate?
No doubt about it, yes. But obviously his own fans, Corinthian fans, love him all the more. And he's done pretty well. I mean, he came, Corinthians were in relegation trouble when he came back end of last season. And it's fabulous actually watching. It's almost like a retro side. It's two strikers and a number 10. And he works so well with the other striker. I understand And I remember talking to your good self, Danny, a few years ago about the Dutch can be difficult to get on with. You know, not the easiest ones because they know everything. They've got all the answers.
They have,
you
yeah.
know, it's a very, very opinionated bunch. And I understand he's not easy to get on with in the dressing room, but he is helping them get win bonuses. And if you're the other striker playing alongside him, he can find those little angles of passes that will put you straight through on goal.
Tim, one player here who certainly we have come to realise that he can play a bit and he's got flair and abundance is Lucas Paquetá. His spot fixing hearing has now been adjourned until the summer, meaning he's free to see out the season with West Ham. How is all that being viewed in South America?
With great attention, because when Brazil came over to Wembley a year ago, beat England, and then they got a 3-3 draw with Spain, you were thinking then that he might well be the most important player in the team. He was the player who has the capacity to run the midfield, also to fall back, to fill space in midfield as well. He could balance the side out, but also unleash the pace of Vinny Jr. And obviously his career subsequently is it's now seriously under threat. So it's been watched with great attention. What we found out from this end is the alleged organizer of the betting scam is his uncle. Now, his uncle, there was an inquiry in Brazil's Congress, and his uncle was called before the inquiry, and he took the fifth. He wouldn't answer any of the questions. And the whole scandal began with a double bet. Paquetá allegedly to pick up a yellow for West Ham, and a winger called Luis Henrique to pick up a yellow for Betis. Luis Henrique ran away from investigation in Spain, came back to Brazil, did very well, got in the Brazil side with Botafogo, and is now with Zenit. And we know that a substantial sum of money, something like $6,000, was passed from Paquetá's uncle to Luis Henrique. So those are facts in the public domain. Now, everyone I speak to here, ex-players and so on, I do Brazilian TV and ex-players around, everyone thinks that Paquetá is skating on very, very thin ice. Everyone is really worried about his career. But the burden of proof is difficult with this one, isn't it? Because I imagine, in legal terms, they have to prove that this was deliberate, and they have to have proof. They have to have definitive proof that it was deliberate, and that may well be hard to find, and that may well be the thing which is pushing this back to the summer.
Tim, not for the first time, thank you so much for your contribution.
Thanks, Tim.
Should be noted that Paquetá, of course, denies any wrongdoing in that case.